Today I'm building a modern pergola that will actually keep you dry. I just used lumber from the home center, but I had more mistakes and struggles than I'd like to admit. No! Now, this is the floating deck that I'm going to put the pergola on, but there's a few things I need to do first before we can start building it. So I want these posts to be right in the corner here of the picture frame. So I do have one joist underneath there, but then I've got this whole big open spot right here. And so what I'm gonna do is basically just cut a few pieces of blocking and put these down in between there. And I'm gonna double stack it. So we'll have a nice 3 inches of wood to tie into. Now putting in the blocking was a little dicey, especially at that lower level, but I just used some screws in from the side and some pocket holes where I could in there. Now there's one more thing that I definitely want to do because we're doing the pergola and now we're going to have a roof on this, is that I didn't anchor this to the ground, and with that roof we're going to have a chance for the wind to come up and kind of give it uplift, and it could definitely move this off the foundation because it's not secured down. So I bought some ground anchors here, and these are like just big 25-inch screws that go into the ground, and then I can attach those onto the joist there. So I'm going to do that at the 4 corners, and this should hold this down really nicely. Now this bracket gets screwed into the side right here, and then I can just go straight through it with the spike. I may have hit a rock. Came up about 4 inches too short. Let's see if we hit any rocks over here. Please no. Yes. All right, that worked. All right, new location, and I pulled out the monster. This is like for doing lug nuts, but we're just gonna give it the goodness and hope it works. That is how it should have gone. Let's get these deck boards back on here and start building a pergola. And we're gonna be building this pergola a little bit different. Now I wanna paint this to match the shed, and the trim is gonna be the same color. So I thought about using maybe some cedar post beams, 6x6s, but then I realized I'd have to take out a second mortgage. So we didn't do that. And we're not gonna use 6x6 post because those things twist and turn like a spaghetti pretzel. I don't know if that's a thing, but if it is, it's really twisty. So instead, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a boxed beam. Now, these are the post base that I have, and they are 5.5 inch, made for a nominal 6x6 post. But they also nicely fit a 2x6, just like that. So you might think, yeah, I'll just grab a couple 2x6s and put those in. The problem is these rounded corners right there. So if you just used 2x6s and then put pieces in between, then you're gonna have this rounded over corner and it's gonna look like junk. So I've got a solution for that. So instead, I'm gonna use 2x10s, and that way I can rip the edges off these, get nice square edges, glue it up, have 2 sides that are 5.5 inch, and then 2 filler sides that are 2.5 inches, and then it will be 5.5 inches square post. Another nice thing is we're gonna save a few bucks because a pressure treated 6x6 is 36 bucks, and each of these is only 13 bucks. 14 if you get pressure treated, and I'll tell you why I'm not using that here in a minute. So 2 of those will be 26 bucks, so I'll save 10 bucks per post. And it's just gonna be a lot nicer to work with. So let's rip them down. All right, we got our outdoor setup all ready to go. I've got my table saw on my outfeed. It is getting hot here in Tennessee, so I've got the tent up, except for some reason I'm not underneath it. I don't know what that's all about. We'll figure it out as we go. But I'm also wearing my new protectors from Shop Shades. Check them out, I'm trying these out. You want to check a pair out? Link down below in the description. Let's rip these bad boys down and see what we can get. All right, so that first cut gave us this nice crispy edge. Ow. Now my second cut, I'm basically gonna cut out a 2x6, so 5.5 inches, except it's gonna have straight edges on each side. All right, that gives us our 2x6, and our offcut here is a little more than 3 inches, and so I can cut this down to be 2.5 inches because the thickness of the front and the back will be 1.5 inches or 3 inches. Another 2.5 will give us 5 inches on this side. We'll be ready for glue up. Now all I gotta do is glue on these sides. This side looks pretty clean, but this other side has got a nice big knot here on the side and another one down there at the end. So I'm gonna put that on the inside of the beam. It's another nice thing. You can kind of pick your edges on these. And I'm gonna use some waterproof glue on these. And then if we have any seams, we can sand it and patch anything later. I'm just using these little trim head screws and putting them about every 12 inches or so, and then that way they'll be easy to plug. I'm using a little scrap block to get everything aligned. I can just put this up against the face, clamp it to the skinny 2x4, and that gets me nice and flush. Then I can use another clamp to pull it in tight. Now, instead of putting this next little side on, I'm actually gonna make another of these, so I'll have 2 of the like kind of L things, because I think it'll just be easier to manipulate it into place when I'm trying to get them both together. But I guess we'll find out. Let me make another one and we'll see. All right, that second one actually went way easier than the first one. So now I've got them both up here. I'm just gonna run some glue down each of the edges and then clamp them up and make 2 L's into a square. All right, we got ourselves a 6x6 post that is hollow. Now there's definitely some raised up spots and some gaps, and I'm gonna Bondo everything just to make it nice and smooth and then sand it all down. Now I just need to make 3 more, but the front ones are actually gonna be longer because the roof is gonna have the same type of slant that the shed does. I think it's gonna look awesome. We whip a few of these together and then we'll get to it. All right, guys, I need to jump in here because I want to show you some things that most people aren't going to show you. They're going to gloss over, they'll just grab another board. But we're going to show the warts and all, and that's with ripping down construction lumber and 2x4s, because there's a lot of tension of them, they grow fast, and when you rip it, sometimes the boards just get wonky. And this one got real wonky. If I go and look at the center of this, it is off by 1/2 inch. We've got a 1/2 inch bow in that piece of wood from where I ripped it, and the stresses just turned it out, because before I cut it, it looked great. Now there's 2 ways that I could fix this. I'm gonna try the first one and see how it goes, but basically with the bow, I'm gonna try to draw straight lines and see if I have enough meat left over that I could just cut out a centerpiece that is actually straight. So we'll see if that works. The other thing I thought about was actually cutting it in half, then straightening it out and then attaching it back together. That one could still work because we're gluing everything together and we're painting it, but let's try the first one first. And I marked it at 2.5 inches along the board and down here. All right, I think that's gonna work. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I've got the board laid out here. I went ahead and put another board on the side, and that's just to support the track. You really need a track saw to do this. So in the center of the cut, we're barely taking anything off, but if you go all the way down here to the end, you can see we're taking off almost 3/4 down here. And same thing on the other side too. Look at that. It's within, I'd call it a 32nd compared to 3/4 inch. So now all you have to do is use that straight edge on the table saw and rip the other side flat. And that is how you fix a horribly warped board if you've got enough wood to work with. All right, my posts are done, and off camera, I went ahead and bondoed them all up so they're nice and smooth. And first of all, I just gotta tell you, that was a lot more work than I thought about it. Man, if you can get some 6x6s and just have some that are not super twisted and can wait to stain them or paint them later, then I would go that way. The reason that I'm not doing that with the pressure treat is because I want to go ahead and paint that because I'm doing this for a YouTube video. And so I want it to be all nice and painted at the end instead of having to wait for a month before I could paint pressure treated lumber. So if you've got some patience and you're not making a video, it's probably gonna be way easier to go pressure treated. Now the one thing about the box beam is that it's not gonna be perfectly even on the end at this point, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and trim the ends of them to get them nice and flush, and then we can cut them to size. These 8-footers we're gonna use as is, but the 10-footers I do need to cut down a little bit. Now that we've got the posts all ready, it's time to figure out how we're gonna mount them. And I'm gonna be using one of these 6x6 post bases. Now, this one's actually made for concrete, and you would typically have that hole in the center and put that on like a J-bolt or whatever that you have going through the concrete and put a big washer on that. But I have gone ahead and drilled a few extra holes, so I'm actually going to use this for the wood-to-wood connection on the bottom there. And there's some other options, but the thing that I really like about this version is that it is raised up, and so the water won't sit on the bottom. And so that way, especially because I'm not using pressure treated lumber, I don't want water sitting on the post base and getting sucked up into the post. I'm also gonna be sealing the bottom of the post just for a little belt and suspenders type action. Look like George Costanza. Just my shirt off. Now, originally I thought I was going to just put this straight on top of the decking, but then I realized that that's a pretty bad idea, because actually that's how my deck is made at my house. And we wanted to replace the deck boards, but the posts are sitting right on top of there. So if I trap the post on top of this deck board, if something ever happens to this deck board, if I want to change the decking, I've got to take down the pergola post. So that's a bad idea. So what I'm actually going to do is notch that out, and because we do have this standoff, it's going to work perfectly. I'm just going to be able to put that down right on top of that blocking I already installed, and then put the post on top, and we'll still have access to all of our screws and everything. It should work out great. We'll find out. I always thought these little 4.5-inch circular saws were kind of like a gimmick, but for stuff like this, these are perfect. So I'm just gonna plunge cut down in there, use my speed square as a line, and just notch out. Then I'll finish it off with a multi-tool. So let's see how this works. All right, that worked like a charm. Now, I did have to level it up a little bit because it was just a little offside. So I grabbed a few little wedges in there, some plastic wedges, some shims, and leveled it up so we're nice and level. And now I'm just gonna secure it with some GRK structural fasteners. I'll have one in the joist and then two into that blocking that I already put in. So it should be nice and secure. All right, this guy's all ready. I'm gonna knock out the other 3 before the sun goes down here, and we'll be ready to install some posts and hopefully get the whole roof up tomorrow. All 4 post bases are done. Post bases? Post bases. Post base I don't know. Bases sounds really weird to me for some reason. Maybe it's because it's so hot outside. I think I need some sleep, and we'll put the post up tomorrow. I'm ready to stand the post up, and before I put these in, I went ahead and painted the bottom. So these whole things are gonna be painted, but because they're gonna be in the bracket, I wanna go ahead and get some paint on the whole thing, because after it's in there, I wouldn't be able to. I also put some waterproofing on that bottom edge. So I talked about that earlier. I wanna make sure that no water is soaking up in this, because this is not pressure treated, and I know I'm gonna have maintenance on it, but I'm gonna give it its best shot. And like I said, pressure treated is probably the better way to go, but we're doing what we can with what we've got. So I'm gonna go ahead and stand these up, and I have my son come over and help me, and we'll just get them even, and I'm gonna start securing them on the bottom with some screws. All right, so this is our first time putting a post, and I actually had some supports where we're gonna kind of cross brace them so that they would stay in place. But I think because of the way that the bases are made and everything, that this is good. I'm not worried about it falling over. And then once we put up the kind of top rafters, we will again level them out, make sure they're in place. But for right now, I'm not worried about them going anywhere. That's what happens when you put a sunshade on top of your camera and it blows it down. All right, good. 4 posts, let's go.
We did it.
I'm starting to cut the rafters out for the pergola, and I'm getting a little turned around the axle. One, because I'm a perfectionist engineer, and so I always overthink things. And 2, it's because of the design I'm going for. So the design we're going for looks a little bit just like this. And basically, instead of having a front kind of header across there and then like either bird mouth or put something across so you could rest the joists on, I don't want to do that. The reason I don't want to do that is because what that does is it makes a perfect place for birds to land and birds to nest, and I don't want anything underneath there where birds can nest on. And if you look at basically any pergola, it is just a haven for birds. And around here, that would be a disaster. So I don't want to do that. So what we're going to do instead is put the rafters right onto the beams. And so now I need to figure out how to mount those without basically any other reference points. And so what I've come up with is I'm going to be using one of the posts and I'm going to put the beam on it. It's going to be about a 9.5 degree angle. And instead of just trying to like all right, so I just had a realization. Actually, what I could do is put another block on the front here and then just rest our other reference blocks right on there, and that will basically register everything. So we're gonna attach it up here and give it a rip. I'm really not loving how wiggly this post is. I hope this really shores up once we connect everything. All right, here we go. Go ahead and hold this on the outside. All right, I'm gonna blame it on the heat. Basically what I did is, again, working with these angles is kind of tough. I even had it all in SketchUp, but in between the outside of this post and the outside of this post at the bottom is like 109 1/8. And what I did is I made it 109 1/8 from here up to there. So the, hypotenuse. And obviously that is not correct. That should be longer, so everything is bowed in. So I gotta remark these and do that. So when you're laying out all your stuff, make sure the math is mathing and always use the hypotenuse for something. All right, take 2.
Let's do it.
We were off 1.5 inches, which oddly enough is the size of the spacer, but it's not because I put the spacer on the wrong side of the line. Go figure. All right. How's that feeling? That's good. All right, let's clamp these in place and see what we've got. Okay. That's good. And that's good. All right, that is much better. And now we can just attach everything. So number 10 GRKs. Right now I can just take off my reference blocks, which actually, when I measured right, worked out great. All right, second one should go way faster than the other one because I think we did our measurements right. Ooh, that's pretty darn good right there. All right, let's drill this sucker home. All right, we're getting ready to connect the front and the back of the pergola, and I'm having some second thoughts on my design. And that's because basically I was gonna be going from the front edge to the front edge, and that would be the total structure holding it left and right. And after looking at this and seeing how wobbly it is, I do not think that's a good idea. So I think I'm gonna have to go post to post with probably like a 2x6 to get a lot of surface area just to lock things in, so it's gonna be nice and solid. And we're gonna come back tomorrow and figure out a better path. And I think it's gonna be a lot more sturdy this way. I did a little redesign, and actually I'm staying mostly with what I had before. We're just gonna add a little bit extra blocking. But what we're gonna do is basically put this exact same one right here. Now the nice thing is it's gonna be way easier because all I have to do is just put up a reference block. Actually, I'll probably use a little bit longer one. And then that way, as long as this is square and they're both resting on the same thing, then they're gonna be at the same height. And then all we'll have to do is true up the front and the back. So these first ones definitely took the longest. Now we can just reference off of those. Should be a lot easier. All right, go up top. It is insanely hot out there. It is 97 in Nashville today. The feels like this is 115. We could have picked a better time to build a pergola, but once this is up, it's gonna give us some shade to stay out of this sun. But until then, we're gonna be taking lots of water breaks. Woo, this is taking a lot longer than I expected, but my gosh, it is hard working in 115 degree feels like. Maybe build a pergola in the fall. My arms are oiled up like I'm ready for a bodybuilding competition or something. This is fantastic. Today is gonna be a scorcher, but I've got a secret weapon in the shed thanks to Jackery, the sponsor of today's video. Now, last year, I upgraded the shed with off-grid electricity. I added lights, power outlets, and an absurd shed TV. And this little mini fridge for some cold drinks. I'm powering the whole shed with the new Jackery HP 2000 Plus V2. Now, this is rated for 2400 watts of power, and it can easily run my entire shed for the whole day, including the mini fridge, charging my batteries. If I need to run any corded power tools, I can tap into one of the 4 AC outlets or use one of the USB-C outlets to charge my cell phone or laptop. Now, the V2 is smaller and 34% lighter than previous generations, so I can easily take it inside and charge it at night, which it gets a full charge in under 2 hours. But on a sunny day like today, I don't even need that because I can also use some Solar Saga 200 panels to charge it. With up to 200 watts of input, that's more than I'm even gonna be using, so I can power the shed, my tools and batteries, and still actually charge the unit. And I can use this thing every single day because it's rated for up to 6,000 charge cycles, which is daily usage for over 16 years. When I'm not using it outside, or if we have a power outage, I can use it inside for home backup, and it's expandable up to 12 kilowatt hours, so you can really get huge coverage for your home essentials. I've also got a little secret plan for the pergola where we're gonna be using this for some power, so stay tuned for that. I'm gonna have a link down below in the description where you can go check everything out. A big thank you to Jackery for sponsoring today's video. Let's go start sweating. All right, now here's a little bit of the redesign I was talking about. So these posts are still quite a bit wobbly. That's because they're not connected left to right, obviously. So I was just gonna put another 2x8 across the front of these and attach it, but I didn't like the idea of all of that structure just being attached into the end grain. So instead, just the simple fix that I decided to do is I'm going to put in some blocking in here, attach these to the side, and then I'll be going into the long grain here, so it's gonna be a lot stronger connection, and I can get 4 nice solid screws in there and have that on each side, and that should shore everything up really nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on each of the corners, then we could put up our front and back pieces. All right, we are a little close to the edge, so I'm gonna go ahead and pre-drill this next one because that first one, a little spicy there. All right, so now for the front fascia, I'm gonna be using this 2x8, and to hang it, I wanna have it flush with the top so that the roofing material will have a nice clean look. So I'm gonna actually have this piece here, which I have cut, and I'm gonna use this again as a reference block, and I'm gonna be able to put this on top and just hang it on those joists, and it should position itself perfectly. Over the top. And it should be flush on the outside. How far off are you at that moment?
This board, I am like 2 inches.
Okay. Ah! No! Remember that thing where I told you earlier, I said many times I've cut it too short?
Add 1 to the count.
Add 1 to the count. All right, so maybe you already figured it out because we did not until we both figured it out at the same time. I cut that front fascia the distance between the outside of the 2 posts. I did not factor in the 2x6s that were on the outside of each of those posts. So I cut it 3 inches short. And yes, I cut the front and the back. And so now we go get more lumber. I was just telling my son about how much it sucks when you cut lumber too short and that I've done it so many times in the past. I just want to give him the full experience. All right. Now we're gonna get this one right. 135.
35.
And 3/4. Mark up the holes. All right. Second time's a charm. We're not going for a third. This should be much better than last time. All right, so I just clamped my level to the post here so we can check level as we're trying to square this thing up, which should be helpful. All right, during the redesign, I'm now gonna have joists running front to back instead of left to right. So there's gonna be a little bit more bearing on these front joists. So I wanna add in some extra blocking. So I'm actually gonna put in some little corner brackets up here. Also, I probably undersized these screws here. So I'm going up to a 5/16 structural lag screw, which is gonna hold it way better. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just using like number 10s. These will definitely hold a lot better, and put them all around, so we're gonna be nice and strong and be able to carry the load. It's just gonna be the load of the roof, but we also need to consider things like snow load and stuff like that. I mean, you know, it's 95 out today, not thinking about snow, but you always have to think ahead. All right, trying to get these rafters up here and trying to do it so that we can actually hold them in place and get them nailed off. And we're trying to butt up against some blocking that we put up there. I realize that is not the right thing to do. We're gonna put blocking on the top, and then that way we can rest it on the rafters that are already up there. And for all you framers out there, you can laugh at me because I'm sure this is just absolutely absurd. But you know what, that's what we're doing. All right, let's try this again. There you go over the top. Good gosh, I'm sweating so badly I can't see anything. It's doing what I was afraid it was doing. It's not level. We got thunder coming. All right, so I'm gonna use these adjustable rafter hangers, and basically they're for front end angles, and once you put them in place, you can then move them. So that's why I didn't install it beforehand, because you adjust it kind of afterwards. So I got it tacked in place, I'm gonna pull it square, then I'm gonna tuck it up in here, and then we can attach the bottom. Maybe I'm not using these the right way. We're gonna try it and see what happens. All right, it's time to pull out the big guns. I'm gonna plug the compressor into the jackery. All right, cool. This one should go much smoother, I think. All right. Oh, why did we not do this from the beginning? Are you on the line?
Yeah.
I am also on the line. Wow, that was easy. All right, guys, this is the way to go. 2x4s on top of the joist, just like we did before. I don't know why I changed it, but now we're back. Framing in the thunderstorm is not a good idea. We probably need to take a break after this. All right, hand me the palm nailer, please. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right, as nice as these clouds are from a respite of the sun, I don't want to get struck by lightning, so let's take a break. Woo! We just made it inside before the torrential downpour started. I just lost power for a brief second right when I started recording. But yeah, it is coming down out there. So we went from like crazy hot 108 degree feels like to, you know, severe thunderstorms. Maybe building a pergola in the beginning of July in Nashville is not such a great idea. I better get inside.
Pergola, stand strong, my friend.
All right, the storms passed through last night. Today's actually the 4th of July, so happy Independence Day for all my US folks, and we're back at it. And I think we found a much easier way to hang these joists, so we're gonna do it. All we're doing is screwing down some 2x4s across the top ends, just like we did before. We struggled mightily with the last ones, and again, sometimes just trying to do too much is too much. Keep it simple. All right, that'll do. That went way easier the second time. Or was it the third time? All right, to stiffen this up a little bit, and some of these boards are a little wonky, we're gonna put some blocking in between. So just gonna have them in here, nail them together all the way down, and I think it'll provide just a little bit extra support, but more importantly, it's just gonna get those rafters aligned so when we put the sheathing on, that we can get everything nicely aligned. All right, it is time to install some roofing. This is the part I am most excited about because this is not just gonna be standard pergola with you know, the wood beams and stuff like that. I want it to be covered. I want this to be more like a, you know, lean-to versus a pergola. And for the roofing material, I'm actually gonna do a metal roof because we had some left over from when we built the shop. So instead of just doing 2x4 purlins across the top, which you could traditionally do, I'm gonna be using sheathing here. So this is Zip System sheathing, and this is really nice sheathing because it is a weather barrier and it's water resistant. So you don't have to put down any underlayment or anything like that. And honestly, the only reason I'm using it is because I only have to do like 4 or 5 panels. And the extra cost is about $8 a panel. So I figure, you know, for the extra 40 bucks, I may as well just try it out because I used some of that force field stuff on the shed and I didn't love it so much. But I can put it up there, and then that way if we ever decide to enclose this, I know that the roof is gonna be nice and weather tight. So let's go ahead and start installing it. I'm gonna put up some little blocks, just some little wooden blocks that I'm gonna put right on the ledge there, and so I can flip it up, so that way when I put up the sheathing, then I can have a place to have a positive registration so that I can make sure it's right on the edge. All right, let's see if we can wrestle this thing up there. These guys up. All right, I have to put you guys on top of the shed. So this thing is super wobbly, but that's also why I wanted to do the sheathing, because as I put the sheathing down, it's gonna give a lot more support and connection. So I'm actually gonna turn this 90 degrees and have it running so that each sheet will go across as many joists as possible. It'll really help firm up the pergola. All right, now I can just butt these against my blocks here. If we laid this out right, we should land halfway on this guy. Oh yeah, I think that looks great also. All right, let's start nailing this bad boy off. All right, first sheet, and we're still wobbling quite a bit, but our knee braces and something else special is gonna take care of that. But hey, now I can just walk over and grab the camera. Whew. All right. I went ahead and cut my next sheet here to 48 inches because it is best practice to stagger the seams here. All right, so I can do a 48-inch sheet, then I'll do a, not quite actually a full sheet over there. I will have to cut something off the end, but keeping your seams staggered, again, just helps with the structural integrity, so they say. I think my compressor is not refilling. Compressor was definitely off. We're down to like 50 PSI, so much better. Now, one thing I did forget to do that I know I should have done is really check the roof for square. I didn't do that, and I can see that it's off a little bit here. It doesn't look too bad. It's maybe only an 1/8 off, so I think we're gonna be okay, but I probably should have done that, and then, you know, we could have like ratchet strapped it to like square up the roof if we needed to, but I think it's fine. Oh gosh. I'm pushing my ladder over. Oh. Must be a lot better if you could see this. It's okay, I'm okay. I almost had a major mishap there. It's better if the ladder falls down while you're pushing up the plywood versus climbing up the ladder, so there you go. My wife is visiting her family right now, which is good because if she saw me doing any of this, she would lose her mind. She does not like heights or me being on them. I am leaving these sheets long because I'm gonna come back and just flush cut the front. Thought it'd be just a little bit quicker and easier than trying to get it exact, especially since I was off a little bit. All right, I think that'll do it. All right, I got a little flush trim bit chucked up in the router, and that's gonna just ride right along the outer fascia. It should cut everything nice and clean. Battery dies with 6 inches left to go. Seems about right. I've got 2 more Milwaukee batteries here, and one's on 1 bar and the other is also on 1 bar. But the sun just came out, so I think we're living right. I think we can get it done. I didn't even try to turn this on because I figured if I did, it wouldn't come on. But if I don't, it should. Yes. All right. I guess the sun does shine on a squirrel's butt every so often. I don't know how that one goes. Right, the final piece to the system is putting on the zip flashing tape. And if you notice, you saw some dotted lines on the sheathing, and that's where this flashing tape goes. So this is almost 4 inches wide, and it'll basically seal up all those gaps in between the panels and then also over the edge as it goes on to the fascia. So I'm gonna just start at the bottom because you wanna do it just like you do flashing. Start at the bottom and work your way up so everything is overlapped, so if any water does get on it, it's gonna shed. It's pretty straightforward to go on, especially with these little dotted lines they give you. And I'm just gonna go over the edge. Just gonna work my way down. Now, one thing you are supposed to do is to roll it. I cannot find my roller right now, and so I'm just gonna push it down with my hands right now, and I'll come back and roll it later. Whoa. And don't double the tape over on itself. Ooh. Thought I could use a credit card here. If you're in a pinch, just use your credit card. All right, I also did the sides. Now I'm just coming over with the final piece here on the front. Bed it in with my highly official roller. This really does work pretty well using a credit card. At your corners, you can just make a little cut out from the corner to the corner of the tape, and then just fold it over, and that gives you a nice wraparound coverage and it doesn't bunch all up. That is the last piece of the system, and now we're ready to put the metal on. So I did the whole roof with 5 sheets of zip and 1 roll of tape, so not horrible. I think the sheets are 20 bucks a piece. That's 100 bucks plus maybe 36 for this, 136 bucks for waterproof decking. If I just had have done just like regular OSB, it would have been, I think, about 60 bucks. Then I'd have to seal the seams somehow or just leave it open. So, you know, if you want a little extra protection, zip system is a nice addition. Mission for this morning is to get everything painted because it has been raining like crazy. I did get the roof up, which was awesome, so it's staying nice and dry underneath. But by about 2 p.m. every day, it just starts thunderstorming. So I'm gonna try to get this so everything gets dry before that comes through, and we're gonna put on some supports to try to firm up the whole thing. I hope that's gonna help. And I think some people are enjoying all the rain. A little family of deer up here. Got a few little mama and a couple babies there, dancing around. I guess we've done right by all those ghost deer. I am using the same paint as the trim of the shed to have a nice match, and I believe the color is called Satin Black from Bear. So let's get this sucker on. And yes, I probably should prime first, but it's paint and primer in one. I mean, don't you just trust them? Got all the posts painted up, but I'm gonna go ahead and paint the front fascia. Now, I actually may put a little piece of fascia on top of here. I haven't quite decided yet, but this needs to be painted before any of the trim goes on because you don't want to be painting on your trim. Also, we're gonna do some trim underneath here, but these outside beams are gonna be exposed, so I kind of just need to get paint on everything on the outside. It's gonna be really cool what we do underneath, but you're gonna have to wait on that. Also, shout out to IsoTunes. They've been a long time channel partner. I use them for my hearing protection, but they came out with the Sidekick, which is this little speaker. And because I was doing this in time lapse, I could actually listen to my music while it was going, because I can't ever listen to music while I'm doing videos because copyright and all that. So it's nice to have a little option. I love this little thing. It's cool because I don't like wearing hearing protection when I don't need it. So if you want to check it out, and you can get 10% off any of the IsoTunes stuff all the time for FTBT audience, you can go check it out in the description. Adding that sheathing actually helped a lot with the sturdiness, but we do still have some front to back, a little bit of wiggle there, a little bit more than I'd want. So what I've done is I've cut some bracing, and we're gonna put some knee bracing in between the post and then the little slot that we have on the side for our rafters. Now to go in that spot, I could use some 2x4s, but I think they'd just look a little undersized. So I'm actually gonna do a 4x6 and actually made this myself. So what I did was I took two 2x6s and I planed them down so that they take the corner off of them. They'd be a little bit more thin. And then I just face glued them together, clamped them up, put some screws in them, and now I've got my 4x6. Now you could also just buy a 4x6, or you could use, a 6x6 as well if you wanted it to be that same size. But I like the idea of the bracing being just a little bit smaller as more of a detail than a huge structural member. So I need to do a few more things to get these prepped. I'm gonna cut my 45s on there, and then we'll get them installed and see how well that does in firming it up. That was just a little bit too much for my saw, so I got to finish it off by hand. I got my 45-degree cut, and then on the other side, I adjusted the saw and I cut it to the same angle as the pitch of the roof, which that's not going to work at all. I'm just realizing, because I have to have that plus the 45. So that actually needs to be like 55. I thought that was way too easy. If I was just putting it like that, it'd be great, but I'm not. And now I bet this board's gonna be too short. Sweet. And the thunderstorm's coming. All right, crisis averted. I used a little scrap piece, cut a 45 on this side. I had 45, then I subtract my 9.5 degrees, which is my 212 pitch from it. So I cut this guy at like 35.5 degrees, and that was the ticket. So that matches there, that matches the ceiling. Yeah. All right, got a little carried away, but I think we got it. I'm gonna cut the real thing. Now I'm cutting through screws. Dadgummit. That's all right. We're just gonna go through them. Just a nubbin left. Yes, those are the screws that I screwed this together when I glued it up. Sometimes you can't win for trying. Well, guess I'm not getting that up today. This afternoon rain is absolutely killing me. Hope your projects are going better. All right, I've got the beams all painted up and ready to go, but before I go to mount them, I want to drill a couple recess holes for where the big lag screws are going to go through into the beam. So I got one jigged up right here. So here's the timber screw we're going to be using, and basically I just made this a little layout right here. So I'm going to go in at a 45-degree angle. So I'm grabbing the square and I'm going to put that in place and use that as a guide. Then I'm going to use a Forstner bit that's the size of the head of the screw, and then I'll have a nice pocket so that when it gets in there, it's going to have a nice flush mount. It's going to be recessed and it'll look great. Right, I know where my beam is gonna go. I measured it up and I've got a line that I can put a little support here. That'll make installing it way easier. All right, now the idea is that I could put this up here and clamp the upper in place to squeeze it. Oh yeah, that actually works really nice because the bar holds it as well. I can reinforce it with another screw on each side coming in, and that should add a ton of rigidity front to back when we're gonna do ones on the back as well. For the back ones, these are gonna be substantially longer because the slope goes up, so it has to kind of keep going to get the slope, versus on these other ones, the slope was coming down, so it shortened the run. So these are closer to 4 feet, where those other ones are closer to 3 feet. All right, now the true test is the push test. Let's see how this firmed it up, if any. Oh yeah! I mean, we still got a little wiggle. Definitely left to right, but front to back, that thing is pretty solid. I mean, anything's gonna give just a little bit. I feel so much better about this now. All right, it's time to do roofing, and like I always say, there's no better time to do a black metal roof than on a 95-degree sunny day, if you hate yourself. So here's what I've got. I got some of these leftover panels from when we did the shop. And also I have 3 different types of trim. And I had these custom made. I tried to buy stuff from the home center and it was not working for like the metal roof. It's all basically made for shingles. So I've got 3 profiles. This one's gonna go on the front edge. This one's the drip edge on the back. And this is the rake trim on the side. So I'm gonna start with the drip edge on the back, then we'll go the metal, then we'll put the rest of the trim on. So the drip edge is gonna be the first piece to go on, and it has a 212 pitch bent up on it and then just a little lip there. And I'm just gonna put it up flush with my edge. Unfortunately, these are only 10-foot sections, so I'm gonna have, you know, one section, then like a little 2-foot section on the end. But I am gonna have it flush on the edge and not round it around, or not curve it around, because I wanna do gutters on the back end, and the gutters will go behind the drip edge. All right, the first piece can go on just like this, and make that flush with my edge. I'm gonna back it off just a hair so I can fit the gutter under there. Should probably take this protective film off before I do this. I'm just gonna secure it with a few roofing nails, or double fire 2 of them. All right, I cannot film anything on this backside. The sun is just right there in our faces. Basically, on this back corner, I'm just tying in this last little like 18 inches of trim right there.
Okay, it's time. Now, I am not looking forward to this for a multitude of reasons. And I would wait to do it a different day if there was any other way, but it's gonna rain for like the next week straight starting tomorrow. So we've got to get this done today. Each of these panels is about 11 feet long, and this is my first time doing a metal roof. We'll see how it goes. I'm gonna use some wooden pieces to kind of teeter it up there. And then I'm gonna have metal scraping on metal. That was not the best way to do this, I'm sure. It looks like it worked.
So this is the part of Pergola that I am least confident about, just because I've never worked with this before. So these were actually like pieces that got damaged or something in some ways. So they've already got screw holes in them. I'm basically just gonna follow the screw hole pattern that they already have. I'm gonna flush it up to this left side, get 1.5 inches on the bottom, and then just move on with the panels. All right, so putting the roof up was a huge challenge. Now, just trying to get the panels up there in its own right was just a disaster. Oh, crap. This metal just digs in. Really wish I had somebody here helping me. I lost my helper. He's gone on vacation. I got it done, and then on that last panel, I actually had to cut it. I tried to cut it with these little like Alibaba shears that I had tested in the video before. That worked horribly. So I ended up just cutting it with a cutoff wheel and a grinder.
that was messy and a disaster as well. But it all got up there. Now the screw placement, that is a whole nother story because I had to use the screw holes that were already there. It's like my OCD is just going wild. The holes are, there's no straight lines anywhere on there, but it is secure, and now it's time to put on some trim. I'm gonna start off up here in the rake trim. So when we're doing the trim, we're gonna start from the back and work our way up because you wanna go the opposite way that the water is gonna flow. And I got this little piece, so this is my trim here that's gonna go across the top, and it's got a little gap for the rib, and then it comes back down. I've already sealed the back here, so I made some little cuts here. It actually turned out pretty well, even though I stink at metalwork. But I got it all cut, and I put some butyl tape on here, and I'm gonna put this on the back, and then my full sheet should fit right over the front of this. I secure it with some screws, which I already pre-drilled for. That is one thing about the roof pre-drilling, that is the way to go, because trying to do self-tapping, I had, you can watch the replay. So now I'm gonna be pre-drilling all the holes from now on. All right, I'll tell you what, we're getting there. We're getting there. Just gotta do the front now. Late at night, sure is nice to have a shed with electricity. You can go check that video out too, after this one. All right, it is 10:30 at night, and I think I've finally got the front figured out. Ooh, yeah, look at all that goodness right there. There's a lot going on here, but I gotta get this installed, because it's gonna start raining about 7 a.m. Become a YouTuber, they said. It's the easy life, they said. Not DIY YouTubers. Ow. Words cannot describe how much I hope that did not ruin that piece. Please, 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 please. Oh, yes. My friends, that is why you buy heavy gauge metal. I was cursing this thing the whole time working with it because it's 26 gauge metal. And now guess what? 26 gauge metal just saved my bacon. I mean, in the dark of night, it looked great. We'll see how it looks in the morning. Ah. All right, so this is the part here, and I kind of messed it up just a little bit, a little too tight. If that's the worst of it, then that's okay, because I nailed these corners. Corners look great. Just closing up the shed, and I checked the weather. Apparently 7 a.m. is not correct. How about 11:45? Yeah, the rain starts in like 40 minutes. Oh, just in time. We did it, my friends. That is a weather-tight roof on a pergola. And this is one tired dude. Check out some beauty shots though. This thing looks fantastic. All right, the weatherman's pants must be on fire because he's a big liar. It is not raining. But last night I got everything finished up, and man, it turned out great. And I want to do more with some tongue and groove and some lighting and some other cool things. But for right now, this would be a great way to leave it if you want just a basic pergola. And I'm going to leave it here for this video, and we're going to have another video on tricking it out. Now, if you think I earned it, I'd love to get your subscription if you're not subscribed already. If you want to check out a video on how I built that shed over there, I've got it queued up for you right there. Until next time, I'm Brad. Get out there and build something awesome.